Welcome everybody to topic 8, which is introducing a concept called recognition. Our focus in 8.1 is on understanding what this concept of recognition in schools is all about. In the last topic, we explored some of the findings from a big Australian study that we undertook on wellbeing in schools. This study also found that recognition is important for improving children's well-being. So let's just unpack for a minute how we define or how we understand recognition. What do we mean by recognition? Well, Bingham, who's a person who's done the work to date in schools around recognition, or important work to date in schools around recognition, talks about recognition as being the act of acknowledging others and coming to be acknowledged by others. So what's really important here in terms of relationships is that recognition requires relationships, and those relationships need to be mutual. Recognition needs to be mutual within those relationships. Let's unpack what that means. Taylor says that recognition, or due recognition, is not just a courtesy that we owe people, it is a vital human need. So we're not talking about recognition here as a nicety, and we're not talking about it as an award that we give somebody at school. We're talking about it as something that is critical for identity formation and answering the question, who am I? Who am I? Because we define and construct ourselves in relation to the other. We only come to know who we are by being in relationship with others, how they see us and how we see them. So, in essence, this concept of recognition suggests that we can't experience recognition outside of the context of relationships. Relationships are critical to recognition. Recognition is not a term we have just come up with. It's actually grounded in a tradition, a theoretical tradition that you're a little bit familiar now with which is critical theory. Recognition theory centres around, or it's interested in, self-actualisation, how people become their best selves, about social inequality, how we come to experience more fairness in the way that we live, and in social justice, how we make the world a more just place to be. So recognition theory is very much interested, it's very much connected to that tradition that's really interested in social transformation, in making the world a better place. Recognition theory is also interested in the individual and in their identity formation, how they come to know themselves and how they come to be in the world, but it's also interested in our case here, children and young people as a social group. It's also so it's interested in the individual and it's interested in the collective, the social group. Why is that important in this work? Well, it's important because children and young people haven't had or held in the past a whole lot of status as a social group. Sometimes as a social group, they have been seen to be human becomings more than human beings. So recognition theory really challenges any last remnants of the idea that children should be seen and not heard. They are persons with rights who are worthy of the same human dignity afforded to you or to me as adults. In our work, Axel Honneth, a German philosopher by the name of Axel Honneth, has been particularly relevant. His understanding of recognition has been particularly relevant for our interests around student well-being and student participation at school. Honoth focuses especially on the role and importance of human interaction in the formation of individual and social identity. So remember we said recognition is about the individual child, but it's also about children as a social group and the ways in which they're recognised and their status is improved or raised. Honoth has distinguished 3 modes by which recognition occurs. These 3 modes, firstly, are about love, about the close relationships in which the sense of self develops. Honoth says, in order for us to develop as individuals, we need to have an experience of love in our lives. He says we also need to have our rights respected, and we need to be treated equally under the law. And he talks about solidarity. He talks about the ways in which we esteem each other's contribution or value each other's contribution. So 3 modes of recognition that we need to attend to: the workings of love in our life, the workings of rights, and our experience of solidarity. We needed to think about how those concepts might be translated for schools, and this is the way that we did that, and this is the way in which love, rights and solidarity have been defined by students in schools and for students in schools. The first one, love translates for the context of schools, or to be intelligible in schools, understood in schools, engaged within schools, is around being cared for. The first is around being cared for, and that's defined as how we are there for each other. When we are cared for, we know and we trust someone enough to ask them for help. Rights is translated in schools in terms of respect, and being respected is about the way we treat each other. For example, it means that we all should respect each other's rights to be listened to and to be treated fairly. And solidarity has been translated in terms of being valued, about our contributions being noticed by the people important to us. When we are valued, we feel encouraged to work together to make things better. So recognition, in order to be recognised, we need to make sure that our relationships are providing opportunities to be cared for, to be respected and to be valued, and in turn to be able to care for others, to be able to respect others, and to value others. So that's the working of mutual recognition. In schools, the kinds of things that students told us about their experience of being cared for were things like, I think sometimes if you have low self-esteem, like if you're cared for, even though you don't like yourself, you know someone else has belief in you. If you're cared about, you don't feel alone, you feel like you belong, you're healthy, you feel noticed, you feel visible. So the kinds of things that were starting to come through when we interviewed students about their experiences of being cared for in schools, there was a very strong thread starting to emerge where that experience, which is linked to recognition, was also really important for their well-being. In terms of being respected at school, what a lot of students said to us was that that was connected to opportunities for them to have a voice, to have a say, to be listened to have their views taken seriously, to be able to influence things for the better. So they'd say things like, so there's like a difference in respected. You feel like opening up, and in not respected, you just, well, you're not allowed to speak. In terms of the third mode of recognition, being valued, the ways that students described those contributions were about being connected, to be contributing, to be part of something. When someone knows that there is something distinctive or special about what you can offer in the class or in the school or in the group that you belong to. And it's also about being appreciated. It was also understood about being appreciated for you, who you are, that students saw themselves as all different, but they would say that when you're valued, your self-worth is better because you are more loved and you are more confident, you feel like you have a purpose. And how you think others see you is really important. So being valued, and again we need to think as educators all the time, what are the expressions of this day in and day out in school? How do we convey our care for others, our respect for others, and our valuing of others? And students tell us it's in the everyday routine things that happen at school where that recognition occurs. What's important about what we're describing here, though, in Honneth's 3 modes of recognition, being cared for, respected and valued, is that these have been shown through the research that we've done to link directly to self-confidence, self-respect and self-esteem. So self-confidence comes through that sense of being cared for, and it's often connected to that sense of I am okay in this environment. Self-respect, about being respected. I have people who listen to what I have to say. Self-esteem, that sense of being valued, is very much tied to what they can contribute, about the I can. And so that's a much more empowering status that we're giving to children through recognising them. And as Dr. Seuss reminds us so eloquently, a person's a person, no matter how small. And in concept 8.2 and 8.3, we'll be looking at student participation particularly, and the importance of this in creating conditions for students to be recognised.